Well, coming out of that break and into the rest of this program, thanks for staying with us here on World Insight. Voting in Iran's 10th presidential election ended 1 week ago on Friday. Official figures gave incumbent leader Mahmoud Ahmadinejad a landslide win, double the number of votes of his main rival Mir Hossein Mousavi. But the opposition has declared fraud. The disputed outcome has triggered protests that are rippling not just across the country, but right across the globe. Will the results of Iran's election be changed, and will that result change Iran? The world is watching.
On Tuesday, Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad arrived in Russia as an observer at the SCO summit. This was his first trip abroad since his re-election. He should have arrived the day before. He was delayed by Iran's biggest protest in 30 years. On Monday, more than 100,000 supporters of opposition leader Mir Hossein Mousavi took to the streets of Tehran, claiming vote fraud. Despite an Interior Ministry ban, Mousavi made an appearance and called for a new election.
Our people are after respect, their votes and their rights.
Protests evolved into clashes. 7 people died in the chaos. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, directed the Guardian Council to examine the election claims. And the final results will be declared in a matter of days.
I think there are 2 main reasons to cause the huge protests. One is that the supporters Mousavi, mostly Tehran's educated urban elite, hope the new government adopts a more liberal policy. Ahmadinejad's tough policy has made the country so isolated they want a change. The other reason is that the news from Western media misled people to believe Mousavi has a support rating similar to Ahmadinejad's. That raised expectations in Mousavi's followers, so the result is disappointing. They find it hard to accept.
Official statistics show Ahmadinejad winning nearly 63% of the vote, and his main challenger Mousavi got 34%. Right after the results were announced, the opposition exploded. Ahmadinejad initially dismissed the unrest.
This much movement is the same as for a football match. In a football match, some 50,000 to 70,000 fans participate, and then they get overwhelmed by passion, and because of that, they will show some reaction.
The day after the election, Supreme Leader Khamenei called the result a divine assessment and urged the nation to unite behind Ahmadinejad. But as the tension rose, Khamenei ordered an investigation into the vote. Some Western media take that as a U-turn in Khamenei's attitude. But Professor Lee has a different point of view.
This is not a change in Khamenei's attitude. He is simply reacting to the developments of the current situation. I think the investigation is just a Fabian policy to ease the riots. Protests always broke out after Iranian presidential elections, but nothing can change the results. So I think it is almost impossible for this election verdict to be overturned. And Ahmadinejad will most likely continue to be the president.
Iranians were passionate about this election. Enthusiasm generated an 85% turnout, the highest ever. For the first time, Iran set up polling stations overseas. 304 opened at the same time. 2/3 were in the U.S. Polls were kept open an extra 4 hours. Although some disputed Ahmadinejad's large margin of victory, Professor Lee believes it reflects the genuine will of the Iranian people.
A clean and people-friendly image gains Ahmadinejad's vast and solid support from the poor and rural population, which make up the majority of the Iranian population. On the Iran nuclear issue, Ahmadinejad successfully resisted pressure from the Bush administration and developed its nuclear program. And as the incumbent president, he has more advantages in the campaign, and he also gained the support from the supreme leader.
High support rates are a confidence builder for Ahmadinejad's next 4 years. But post-election protests remind him to review his policies. Most opponents of Ahmadinejad come from big cities like Tehran. They have more access to the outside world. During the presidency of Ahmadinejad's predecessor, Mohammad Khatami, Iranian society became more open-minded.
It's no problem to wear a colorful scarf.
No. Why? Where did you hear that? From news.
Maybe.
No, that's wrong.
But Ahmadinejad believes traditional ways of Islam should be maintained. He wants to restrain Western culture's influence on the younger generations. Iran's Revolutionary Guards have warned the country's websites and bloggers to delete all content that may instigate tensions. Any offenders will face lawsuits. Urban Iranians are calling for change, which of course includes Ahmadinejad's economic policy. Another key issue awaiting Ahmadinejad to resolve is Iran's relations with the U.S. U.S. President Barack Obama has repeatedly offered to open dialogue with Iran since he took office. He even made a concession in Cairo earlier this month that allowed Iran had a right to a peaceful nuclear energy program. But so far, Tehran's response hasn't been clear. And Iran's disputed presidential election has once again put President Obama in an awkward position. Strong criticism could backfire, but a muted response leaves an impression of weakness. So Obama has reacted cautiously.
And what I would say to those people who put so much hope and energy and optimism into the political process, I would say to them that the world is watching and inspired by their participation, regardless of what the ultimate outcome of the election was.
The re-election of the conservative Ahmadinejad wasn't what the U.S. wanted, but could Mousavi really make a difference? History tells the answer. During reformist President Khatami's term, U.S. sanctions saw no reduction. The Clinton and Bush administrations had a good start to deal with Tehran, but both ended with nothing to show for it. Can Obama do any better?
Obama's honeymoon has ended. It's time for him to undergo the real test. The first phase of his foreign strategies has been made by showing the stance, and the next phase will be action, which will be a severe test of Obama's patience and sincerity.
And it's not only the U.S. president who will be tested. Ahmadinejad and Mousavi have an even bigger challenge. The dispute over the election results have turned into a struggle over the balance of power and the direction Iran will take. And for both of them, a divided nation is no victory.
Well, now the focus is not only who will become the new president, but how he will deal with that situation and where he'll lead Iran to. You're watching World Insight that wraps up that second story. Coming up next, Secrets of Our Past, an Ancient Army in Modern Times.
Entertainment.